the resurgence of the Lassa fever. The Lagos State Ministry of Health and the University of Lagos Teaching Hospital, Luth, are assuring Lagos residents of their commitment and expertise to contain the spread of Lassa fever in the state.
The assurance became necessary following recent cases of Lassa fever treated at Luth and the death of 2 of the infected patients. Vivian Irikefi completes the story.
In the last 2 weeks, the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, Luth, has managed 2 patients with Lassa fever, but unfortunately, they died. 100 of those who came in contact with the index case are currently being monitored. So far, 3 of them have tested positive to Lassa fever and are receiving treatment at an isolation ward in Luth. A resident doctor is one of them.
The current outbreak is being effectively traced in the field by those who are trained to do contact tracing, and those exposed to the index case are receiving good treatment of international standard.
Presently, we have about 100 that we are doing contact tracing on in Luth. What that means is that because they have had one kind of exposure to the cases, we just have to monitor them for the next 21 days. We have actually tested about 5, and 3 have been positive, and they are being well managed.
Lassa virus resides in a pool of animals like rats. The experts' advice to the public is to keep their immediate environment clean at all times and declare war on rats.
It's an endemic disease here. It lives with animals who live with it and transmit it to humans from time to time. We only need to control it. It may not be possible for now to eradicate it, to ensure that Nigerians observe the simple rules of hygienic living to keep Lassa fever at bay. Live healthy, clean lives that will not make those rats contaminate the food we eat or contaminate the environment in which we live. And that's the way we should control that disease.
Anybody that died from Lassa, the same way that we do treat anybody that died from Ebola. Basically, what we do is that immediately the person is confirmed dead, we use body bags. Instead of 1, we use about 2 or 3, so that the body fluid of the corpse will not be able to flow outside.
All right, well, joining us in the studio is a medical doctor, Tuyi Mebamodu. Good morning. Thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning, Gozi.
I wish you were here to talk about, breakthrough in Lassa fever treatment and all of that, but alas, here we are again. Lassa fever is back.
Lassa fever has always been here. For about half a century now, we've been dealing with Lassa fever, At every point in time, it appears as if, we've conquered it or we've, subdued it. But again, we see resurgence every now and then. What you are seeing exactly is not resurgence per se. Okay. We have what I call an endemic situation. The thing is always in the society, it's always hanging out there. But suddenly we see a spike of that endemic thing, which now grows to become a pandemic. And we saw the worst case in 2012. When we have more than close to 2,000 people being infected, and then we lost 112 lives. But now, this recent resurgence has affected 24 states, and we've lost 154 people, and we are still counting. Now, the question is that, why do we keep having Lassa fever every time?
That's the question. Maybe before you even ask why we keep having it over and over again, maybe you should define for us exactly what Lassa fever is, because we can't take it for granted that everybody really understands what Lassa is.
Okay, Lassa fever is a viral illness. Picks its name from a village in Lassa, where it was around Borno area, Borno State, where it was first isolated. Lassa fever, the normal host of Lassa fever are the rats. It's the rats, the multi-mammalian with multiple breasts, these African rats, that host it and then transmit it to human being, either through when they have contact with the fluid from the rat, either their blood or defecation of feces and all. And then the thing now moves from human to human, and of course, what are the manifestations? It's common like any other tropical diseases, fever, headache. But the key thing is that you see sore throat and joint pain. And then, you know, after about 21 days incubation, then you now see affectation of the gastrointestinal tract, I mean the alimentary tract, vomiting, stooling, and then later the blood clotting system is affected, and the person can now bleed from any orifices, from the nose, from the skin, from the eye. And then it can then spread to the brain, you know, and cause terminal illness. The case fatality ratio of Lassa fever is very high. Some mention 37%, some as high as 54%. That means that for every 100 people that pick Lassa fever, 30-something of them are going to die. So we can even see this playing out even in the recent epidemic that is ongoing. Lassa fever becomes important because you see it's classified as class 4 bioterror agent, which can actually be used to wipe out a whole population or even deliver some worse. So it's not just something we just talk about because we hate rats, or we talk about because we don't know what to do. It's something that all of us need to actually honestly understand. The genesis of this fever, of this Lassa fever, and the resurgence of the epidemic, and how to sincerely and thoroughly deal with it. We can't... All right.
Before we continue on how to deal with it, and of course why it's still rampant in Nigeria at this time, let's give out more information about it. Nigerians are on the alert, like we said earlier, after a resurgence of Lassa fever in the country. In the past few weeks, cases were reported in Bauchi, Edo, Ogun, Ondo, and Plateau states. 2 people have been killed by the disease in Lagos State, and 100 hospital workers who had contact with the victims have been placed on surveillance. So what exactly is Lassa fever?
Okay, now, so Lassa fever is a viral hemorrhagic fever which was first discovered in a village called Lassa in Borno State in 1969. 48 years after, Lassa fever is still a challenge in Nigeria, causing outbreaks in different parts of the country. The fever occurs commonly in West Africa, especially in Nigeria, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Ghana, with yearly peaks observed between December and June.
Now, the initial host is an infected multi-mammoth rat. Lassa fever is transmitted to people via contact with food or household items contaminated with urine or feces of the infected rat.
It can also be transmitted from human to human through contact with body fluids of an infected person. Laboratory transmission can also occur, particularly in a hospital environment in the absence of adequate infection control measures.
Lassa fever has an incubation period of 21 days. Some of the symptoms include fever, weakness, headache, vomiting, and muscle pains. Now, there may also be bleeding from the mouth or gastrointestinal tract.
All right, let's continue with Dr. Mebamodu right now.
So, yeah, we understand the incubation period is 21 days to lead to death or any form of damage.
The incubation period simply means that from the time the virus enters the body and the time it now, leads to manifestation of disease. Okay? So if the person contracts the virus now, it's going to wait for about 21 days before you start seeing the full manifestation. That is what incubation period is all about. So now, going back to the main issue, why do we have epidemics? Why do we have Lassa fever? Why are we not really dealing with it? Now, the first thing in initiation of epidemic is what we call a zoonotic spark. What this means essentially is this. Now, the virus jumps from either a domesticated animal or a bush animal to human. That's where the spark starts. Okay? Now, the virus now uses...
Through which means is it contact?
Through contact. Through which means, how do we get this thing? You have seen increased human activities in terms of expanding settlements, because normally the normal habitat of these animals are the bush. You clear bush, you increase agricultural and livestock processes, activities. Then also, you build houses close to, you build houses and expand your settlement. Ecological factors, you're seeing increased climate change. So again, human being is gradually coming in contact even more with these animals than before. So the contact with the animal will most inadvertently lead to a jump, from of this virus from those their host to human.
That contact, would it be abnormal contact Or, I mean, one would have thought that biodiversity permits that humans and primates and animals can always, you know, coexist in the ecosystem. So where does it go wrong that we now become a danger to each other?
Now, let me give a clear example. If you're familiar with Lagos-Ibadan Expressway.
Yes.
20 years ago, the place was a huge, wonderful forest, okay? But if you look at the place, you can travel from Ibadan to Lagos now, you won't see a single unoccupied place. So, you know, those activities actually make sure that you get in contact with them. And then, of course, you see human beings, either as a sort of hunting or doing so many things, they get in contact with this animal, they get in contact with their blood. Some even use them for delicacies, they eat them, okay? So in that process can actually cause what we call a zoonotic spark. And then you will observe that essentially the places with high disease burden, okay, and the places with worse human resource, you know, for health, and the place where people are really poor and having other things, actually the first spot where you see all these things. Yeah. That is why you see most of those epidemics that later become pandemics happening in particular parts of Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, South Asia, Southeast Asia. That is where you see
poverty then is a huge factor.
Because now you are seeing people that are already compromised in terms of their immunity. They're also dealing with other diseases, okay? And then you now see another one coming into it. Now, you observe in the case of Lassa fever that there's a point at which those animals are actually foraging, you know, trying to look for food to eat, because even their natural habitat has also been destroyed. So they now need to move to town to look for food, eat your grains, eat your gari, and all those things. And the process inadvertently drop those viruses for human to consume and cause this problem.
All right, so can we say this is why somehow it's been prevalent, especially in the northern part of the country, because of the humanitarian situation there?
Yes, and then, you know, you are seeing increasing wars. You know, you are increasing famine, you are seeing human maldistribution in terms of, you know, displacement of human beings in all these places. So, in a way, you are seeing activities of human beings encroaching on those critical areas and leading to those kind of experience. Yeah. Now, when this happens, at the point, you know, it gets to all of us because of human movement, because of human interaction and activities, gets to all of us. But for us, we chose to do what I call, you know, an ad hoc intervention. You know, we wait, the thing, you know, simmers down, it flares up, we jump at it.
Fire brigade
you know,
approach.
And it's not proper. You know, getting the right understanding and perspective on how to deal with this thing becomes so key if we need to deal with this. And the first point of dealing with Lassa fever and any epidemic at all is surveillance. What surveillance means is essentially is this. We go to, we start to check the animal and human and pick. We spot and stop. We spot and stop epidemic.
So there's a need for proactive, you know, more proactive.
Surveillance means you spot
measures
and stop.
Okay.
The epidemic, you know.
How do you do that?
Okay, simple. What we do is that we do constant. We need epidemiologists. We need laboratories. We need human resources for health to be able to go into this area, because where do we start from? We start from those high risk area, high spark area. You know, where they are, where we're having, you know, the worst of, you know, indices in health, either in this part of the country or even globally. We start from there. We go into those community and do routine check of people. In fact, when we pick rats, you know, we do routine check to be sure that are we having, you know, this quality of this rat, you know, that with this kind of virus.
Have we always seen the Nigerian health officials doing this every time during outbreaks?
They cannot do this. You cannot really do this because, again, they are constrained. The constraints are actually human resources, not just human resources, there's finance. Because now, what the world is thinking now is that we must do what we call future preparedness, you know, future financial preparedness for epidemics. Whereby, you know, because the first challenge you have is that when the epidemics break, you need money. You need money to procure vaccine. You need money for logistics. You need money to move human resources.
But wouldn't that be coming to the party too late, where if you have to wait until there's an outbreak? Like you mentioned earlier, the tendency to, relax when all seems clear. And all of a sudden we, get into action again when there's an outbreak like you have in this particular latest case. Should there be a high alert all through, whether there's an outbreak or not? And then again, what is the job of the CDC, for example, in terms of carrying out research and coming out with solutions before the problems even arise?
Interestingly, because you need human resources for health to do all those research, and it can be overwhelming. 200 million people, how many epidemiologists do you have, really? And the case of Ebola has actually taught us that, you see, you need to really have a prepared money to address these things, because the cost of epidemic is really humongous. The world cannot afford to allow epidemic to be spiking up and disrupting trade, causing sickness, leading to sequestration of human beings in a particular area. So, the national emergency, and then the other thing we need to do is what we call, early warning signs, early warning system for epidemics and pandemics. We need to be able to craft that out right here. And even at the level of community, we must be able to pinpoint before those things. We have to create an early warning system that can pinpoint and tell us that, look, behold, you are likely going to have an epidemic of this in this area. So now, the early warning system should be simplified enough to be able to be useful at the local level, at the community level, where most of these things, actually, rear its head. So there's no doubt. The way forward, because look, there's another challenge that has to do with, international health diplomacy. Now, what that means essentially is that now you have an epidemic, you have a Lassa fever outbreak. You are depending on these people to bring reagents, vaccines,
researchers,
drugs, researchers to do all those things. The first thing, even if they have the vaccine, the first thing they're going to do is that ensure that they have enough stock for themselves before they start considering you. And then even when the vaccine now comes to the country, it goes to the big cities. We don't see, you see the maldistribution of the vaccine still affects the people in the country. So now, in Nigeria, how can we just have 2 laboratories that can confirm Lassa fever? The whole of this nation.
Presently.
Lutz.
Wow.
Lutz and specialist hospitals in Rua. Okay, those are the 2 main places that can confirm Lassa. So again, we've seen the whole health system that we're not really getting it right. So now, why is it difficult for us to even manufacture? Because
of time, we have limited time. What can be done now? Because we are seeing that it's gradually spreading from the north to the west.
We're in 24 states now and still counting. We've had 154 deaths, still counting. Now, the first point, to address this thing is actually what I've mentioned, surveillance first. Surveillance is the first thing. The second thing is that for us to craft an early warning system that can pick this thing early and let us know what we need to do. We have to really go back to the high spark area, and we have to look for where the disease burden in the country is highest, and then shine our light and track all these things. Thirdly, we need to be able to create future fund to finance epidemic outbreaks. We need, you see, health should now be seen more of, as a market determined by, because if you look at the balance sheet and look at the challenges and the problems of this epidemic we have for the people, we need to know that, honestly, it's worth spending whatever we need to ensure that either we train epidemiologists, either we structure our system to deal with these things, or even we go back to the local places. Yes, you can kill rats. Okay, rats will also multiply in abundance.
And they do multiply very quickly too. And then, of course, the resident doctor has been infected. Well, we hear he's improving. That in itself shows the risk that health workers themselves are involved.
So everyone is at risk.
Everybody is at risk, really. Dr. Tuyi Mebamodu, thank you so much for joining us
always.
on The Breakfast this morning.